But we display different artists every month, and I think it's really important to let an artist speak for themselves. Generally we have a message, and it is up to the viewer of whatever the medium is to interpret what they think. But I also think it's nice to let the artist, so that we're not totally projecting our views onto it, to let them speak for themselves. So I'm going to turn it over now to Louise Harris, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Sounds
Welcome.
good. Thanks. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Louise. I have been an artist, I would say, probably since I was 3. That's when I started taking ballet class. So that's when I fell in love with what I would say storytelling. And for me, a lot of my life, that storytelling has taken form in theater. I just graduated from the University of Florida with a BFA in acting and a minor in dance. So a lot of that is performing and stage theater. But throughout college, I learned different ways to tell stories. I was also a tour guide for UF, a campus tour guide. So I found storytelling in that regard, and then I found storytelling through my art. So I think that art is very much like theater, that without an audience, it's not really anything. So I'm really, really humbled and excited to have an audience for my art here at Penn Arts. So I'm very thankful for that. I've been doing art, scribbling, painting, drawing, getting my hands dirty for most of my life. But I would say my artistic career as we see it in these hallways now, it's probably started in 2020 when I came home from college because of COVID, and I had a lot of extra time on my hands, and I had canvases in my closet and paint in the drawers that I probably hadn't used since middle school, and I just started slapping stuff together. And over the past couple of years, I've really developed my art sense and the colors that I like using and the textures that I like exploring. A really big component of my art is sustainability, even though I'm not really happy with the prints being packaged in all that plastic. But if anybody has a better suggestion of how to do those to get them home safely to you, please let me know. But actually a lot of my canvases are thrifted or secondhand. So I go to a really cool store in Gainesville called the Repurpose Project to get canvases and art supplies there. I go to thrift stores and kind of let the materials speak for themselves. Same with my paint that I have. I don't really go out and buy paint for a painting that I want to do. I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of running out of pink, so we can't really use pink in this one, and figure it out from there. And really let the materials speak for themselves. I have some pieces too that are kind of inspired by tarot cards. I find inspiration kind of wherever, but sometimes I just feel the need to create and do something, and I don't exactly know what that creation is yet. So I get out my little Rider-Waite tarot card deck that my mom gave me, which if you do tarot, you're not supposed to buy your own tarot card deck. I don't know why that was relevant to say, but fun fact. So pull out a little tarot card and go from there. So my piece by the bathrooms, it's like hot pink with yellow swords, the 3 of Swords. Pulled out a tarot card, 3 of Swords, and I was like, oh, this actually has a deeper meaning to me. It's kind of like body image and self-talk and all of that. And so then put that on a canvas. I also have a notes app on my phone where if something will come to me in the car while I'm driving, and I'm like, oh wait, that would be cool as a painting, and they are so ugly, I should pull it out on my phone. No one would know what that is, but I draw it on my phone at a stoplight, and then I go home and I paint it. So yeah, I think also, I guess for my spiel first, and then you guys can ask me questions about this. I notably in my life recently had a surgery. So I had brain surgery 2 months ago. I had what's called an Arnold-Chiari malformation type 1. Which is basically you kind of grow into it. And basically, in summary, my brain was too big, and so a lot of stuff coming out of there. But really, it was too big, and it grew into where my spinal canal was, and so I was having a lot of neurological issues. I was having numbness in my hands. I was having like vision problems. My friends started calling me their blind friend because I would have to like go home and lay on the floor, and it was like a joke, and it was to make me feel better, but it was really scary. Especially, like I said, I've been dancing since I was 3, and not being able to go to dance class, or like dance class then becoming a dangerous space for me, was really difficult and scary. And it's been like a year and a half in the making of like getting that surgery, like between my diagnosis and then like actually getting it fixed. So now you can only see like a little like 2-inch scar kind of poking out the bottom of my head, but I had 21 staples in the back of my head 2 months ago, and I'm like going to PT now for my muscle spasms. So I'm definitely a person that tries to make the show go on, because I've been doing theater and dance my whole life, but that was a big like, you're stopping, slow down. And so a lot of these pieces were made during that time of slowing down as well. So it's really interesting to see what comes out of different periods of your life. So yeah, that's about me. Any questions about anything I've said or anything you've seen? Yeah.
Are you receiving cranial sacral work?
No, I'm not sure what that is. I go to physical therapy twice a week, so.
We'll talk.
Okay.
I get you hooked up.
Okay.
Be really helpful.
Yes, sir?
I was admiring the wire hanging on the back of your artwork out there. Is there an art to doing that, or do you just kind of...
So, yeah, the night before I had to drop these off, I was like, oh wait, that email said that they need to be hang ready, and some of these pieces were not hang ready. So this is my stepdad for everyone. This is Charlie. And so I was like, how should we go about doing that? And I went to Lowe's and I got the hooks and the wires, and all the canvases have a lot of love put into them of Charlie and I screwing the screws in the wire.
Teamwork, I tell you.
Teamwork, yeah. So. Yes, Tom.
Okay. First off, congratulations, and good for you on your process and your journeys to get here. I felt like I knew what to expect because I've known you for a while, and hearing you talk, I am so stunned at your description of your artistic process to be so organic and such a journey. I'm hearing that you're saying, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I'm going to start with this. And then the artwork developed. Is that am I rephrasing this correctly? I'm fascinated by that. It's like, as a musician, that's like jazz. It's like saying you have classical music where you know where you're gonna get and you play it and perform it and it's there. And then jazz is like, we're gonna discover as we perform. Is all of your graphic art created that way, or are there times where you have something in your mind, this is exactly what I'm going to get out on the canvas?
I don't think I've ever gotten something exactly in my mind to the canvas. I don't think I've ever done that, and I think that is what's really been great about art for me, is it's taught me a lot of patience and acceptance of things that I can control and things that I can't. And I would say the ones that I know the most what I want them to be are those like growth series, those kind of like watercolor faces. I think I did the red and green one first, and then I was like, oh, I like this style, and so then I made a couple more. Like I remembered how I did that with like a pastel and then the paint and that, and I was like, okay, I know how to do this one. So those are more expected, the outcome, but like Please Stop, the like very long skinny one in the front room, that one took like months to do, because I first just took the canvas off the wall and I was like, we're gonna paint over this, and painted like a background of like the pink splotches first, and then left it alone. And then I was like, okay, now we're gonna do flowers, and now we're gonna do this, and it probably took like 4 months in total to do, and it developed on its own.
And it grew and developed on its own.
Yeah, and I had no idea what it was gonna be when I took it off the wall. I had a vague image of these two women, but and then I was like, oh, something. What do I want? Okay, smiley faces now are coming here. And then as I drew the smiley faces, I was like, oh wow, this is actually saying a lot to me now. That piece is one of my favorites. But then I was like, oh, this is actually saying a lot about the expectations of women to be happy or be pleasant a lot of the times, and that's not necessarily something that you always have to do. And it kind of just came out from like, I want to put some yellow here, and then it kind of told me what I needed to hear. So.
That in itself is inspiring to me, that journey that way. And I think it's also a testament to the fact that you are able to celebrate what's happening on the canvas and accept it and then take it as the next step. That's inspiring too.
Yeah,
So.
thanks.
How do you know when a picture's done?
Oh, that's hard. Sometimes I don't. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, that kind of looked better before I did that part. So I try to take pictures kind of throughout my process. I think I've gotten better over like recently, finishing it and letting it be done. Like a couple of those pieces I started, like the orange and blue one that y'all bought, and then like the little faces over there. I think I started them with the intention of them being the background for a piece. And then I was paused on it, and my friends came over and they're like, oh, this looks great. This is beautiful. I love this. And I was like, oh, well, it wasn't done, I didn't think, actually. And they were like, no, it looks great. And I was like, you know what, it is done, I think. I like it. So, I don't know, I've kind of grown into it and figured it out. But sometimes it's been interesting to now have them on display, because before, like, I think some of my pieces are like a journal in a way. Like definitely the one that took 4 months to make, it was just like whatever feelings or thoughts I had at the time just lived on that canvas, and that's what that vessel was to accept all of those. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But
Are they acrylic? Is that what you're doing?
most of it is acrylic paint, some oil. The mixed media ones are like acrylic and then metallic paint and then oil pastel and then crayon and marker and watercolor. So, like I said, the materials just kind of speak. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I have a word in my mind that I associated with the picture over the door, the portrait. Could you talk a little bit about that piece?
The one over this door right here.
Right over the door, yes.
That one I painted that was the first one that I painted when I got home from college for COVID. Like I was sent home from my performing arts training. And it was really hard because being an actor and a dancer, you're in spaces with people all the time, collaborating, talking, working together. And my classes were super small and super tight-knit, and I just saw the same people every day. And then now all of a sudden we're like spread across the state, not seeing them at all, seeing them on a Zoom screen, and it was very isolating and very lonely. And also in that time though, when I had to slow down, there were a lot of things that I thought I had dealt with in the time that turns out I hadn't. Like, so then I'm like, oh, okay, actually I needed to slow down and figure all this out. But that piece, I think, is just a reflection of slowing down, of embracing. It's called a moment of silence. So it's just like embracing the slowness, like embracing the silence. Like I didn't have to be in the acting studio all day creating to have a purpose and have worth. Slowing down. You are also still worthy when you do that. So, thank you for asking.
Was there a piece that really surprised you when you were finished with it? In terms of good or bad, or where did it come from, or you had to connect with it?
definitely Please Stop, the one that I was talking about earlier with like the smiley faces. That's the one that took 4 months to do. So it definitely was surprising when I spent no more months doing it. I was like, okay, yeah, she's done. But then the one next to it too is Two of Swords, and I painted that one, started it. I did it all in one day, which is crazy because they look really similar, kind of, the style, but that one I literally did all in one day. It was like hyper-focused and just painted and did it. And it surprised me because I had no idea what it was going to be, and then all of a sudden, like, however many hours later, it was done. But then, as I was looking at it, I was like, the irony is crazy because I did Two of Swords, but it was like my interpretation of Two of Swords, so it's like a broad sword and also a dagger, but I happened to be, at the time, in a stage combat class at school where we were learning rapier and dagger technique, and I was like, oh, I literally just did that. But I was really sore from holding these like heavy swords and fighting with them in stage combat, and so I was like, you know what, my neck is killing me, I need to go to the Student Healthcare Center at UF, which UF has a wonderful Student Healthcare Center. I've been there a couple times. I went there and I was like, I feel like something is funky, like I pulled my neck or something, it's just killing me. I was also, at that time, in performances for my senior thesis role of Antigone, and I was like, it was my day off, it was Monday off, and I was like, I need to get this together. And I went, and they read my chart that I had in my MRI show up the Chiari malformation, which I had talked to my neurosurgeon about it, like maybe having surgery, maybe not, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then he was like, I've had one patient before that's had neck pain and also a Chiari malformation, and she had a syrinx in her spine. Like, she had a cyst in her spine. And he's like, I'm not touching you until you go get an MRI of that. And then I ended up having a syrinx in my spine, and then that was like the missing piece to figure out what kind of surgery I was gonna have for my brain surgery. And so I say all of that and I go on all of the story because that piece, like, if I hadn't really been in that stage combat class, like, it was just, everything was aligned at like the perfect time. Like, and if I hadn't been in the stage combat class, and if my neck wasn't sore that day, and if I didn't go in and complain and get x-rays taken at the Student Healthcare Center, like, I might not have gotten the surgery when I did or when I needed to, or the right kind of surgery to fix the problem. So that piece surprised me because it kind of, like, looking back at it, I'm like, you like knew more about my life than I did, kind of.
So you didn't go into it with all that thought?
No,
But when you
nope.
were done, you played the whole thing in your head?
Yep, I played it, like, I could see, like, everything in my life kind of happen, and, like, really I was like, I was, like, really on the tarot card, like, swords kick, because I really liked like, swords are a lot about, like, decision making, or, like, mental, like how you talk to yourself and stuff like that. So I was really interested in those, and I was like, okay, we're painting a sword here across this thing, and then everything else kind of happened, and then I was like, this space is kind of blank, and so then I did like half of a claw. But then now when I look back at it, I'm like, I can really translate everything that was going on in my life, like, into that piece, and I wasn't thinking about that at all when I was making that piece. So that was such a long-winded answer. Whoa.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Okay, so I noticed that a lot of your stuff has to do with female body image and female expectations. Has any of your work changed for you, the message changed for you since the repeal of Roe v. Wade?
There's 3 pieces out there that I made on the day of Roe v. Wade being overturned. But one of them was but several of them I painted way before that happening, and one I like had in my drafts and I like posted on the day of Roe v. Wade. It's the one by the bathroom with the woman, and there's like a big stop sign and stuff. So definitely, I don't think they've changed the meaning. I think if anything, it's just been deepened, the meaning of them. But those black and white pieces that are hanging up, I needed something to do with my brain and my like body. I was just like, hold on, let me focus on one thing, and I just like got out a piece of paper and a pen and started drawing shapes. And I was like, all I'm focusing right now is drawing shapes. I don't know what this is gonna look like, and I was not intending it to be a piece at all to show. I was just like, this is a doodle so that I can like get out of my head and just like be present. And so I was drawing those shapes, and then I drew like a little like lumpy looking thing, and I was like, that kind of looks like a nose. And so then I made faces, and then I was like, this is actually quite nice, I really like these. So those surprised me too. But yeah, those two pieces I made during Roe v. Wade, and it's funny because I really wasn't intending them to be anything at all. And then I've gotten so much, like those are arguably the pieces that I've gotten the most feedback on. Like I have friends from like out of the state that are like, I want a print of that to hang in my apartment. And I'm like, okay, like I wasn't setting out to make some great art when I did that. I literally just needed to like calm myself down. So, yeah. So, hey. Yeah.
Kind of piggyback off that, do you find that your work is also very therapeutic for you, that if maybe you are going through a tough time or some sort of struggle, you use art as a way to work through it? And is there maybe one piece that, other than the ones you talked about, that speaks to that?
Well, it was either that or Charlie was gonna have to paint the house.
Or I was gonna paint the walls, that's funny. Yeah, definitely very therapeutic for me. Something that I also discovered in college, lots of diagnosing happened to me in college. I got diagnosed with combined type ADHD, so hyperactive and inattentive ADHD, pretty epically, that I had masked just my whole life before and like had coping skills for, and did the IB program pretty successfully, I would say, in high school, but had ADHD, didn't know it. So sometimes, in addition to it being therapy for like my emotions and my thoughts for like deeper things like my sexual assault or my brain surgery or stuff like that, sometimes it's literally just as simple as I have a hyperactive brain and it needs to be doing something, and that's just the thing that I'm doing at the time, which has been very therapeutic for me and like given me the outlet that I need. Instead of doing something else or spending money on something, I can like create, and that is like very satisfying towards my little brain receptors that need dopamine and everything. So yeah.
When I heard that you had an art show, I was like, of course she does. I think that your self-exploration and your diagnoses and the way that your mind and your soul were looking to cope with that falls right in line with your ability to be on stage, with your grace, with your physical training, the contact with your body, the contact that you have with audiences turns into that need for your fingers to meet your brain. And I see that same thing in my own daughter, and I am grateful to see this expansion of your art as a way to express your own creativity versus feeling like, well, I'm somewhere on the spectrum, that makes me weird. No, it makes you a creative, and it's a deep creative, and so I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. I don't think ADHD, that diagnosis was not like, oh no. I was like, yes, thank God, like, it all makes sense. But yeah, having that, I feel like in a lot of ways it makes me really creative and really helps me in my creative processes, because I can work on a painting for 8 hours and I'm like, this is great, love it. Or it, like, I really see it show up in my acting work and my dance work too, of just how my brain thinks. So I definitely think it's a gift. I'm happy to know how my brain works. So yeah. Yes. Oh, you can help us.
I'll venture on dangerous ground. You said you were a victim of sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
How did that change your involvement with art? I don't know. Were you acting at the time? Or painting?
I was acting. I was in acting school. I was a sophomore in high school. Or no, not high school, college. Sophomore in college. and I was in my acting program. I was actually drugged at a bar, and raped, and for several months I didn't really process that or process what had happened. I talked to my friends about it and they were like, oh, that was weird, that was not good, and I'm like, yeah, that was weird, and it didn't ever hold the weight of it, and then months later it just kind of hit me one day and I was like, whoa, hold on. So that's kind of why that piece in particular took 4 months to paint, because that was all of these months of me not being able to process any of that, finally processing that and getting it out. Definitely as an actor, I am very aware of consent culture in the rehearsal space. So I'm fortunate in my school, in my training, before any show, we'd have an intimacy director for any sort of movement or any sort of hugging, kissing, holding hands, any sort of thing. It's you've talked about that and there's a professional in the space with you to navigate that, but it definitely makes me I am definitely an advocate for those spaces, and I think that all theater spaces should be safe for anyone, and no one should have to disclose their past or disclose anything that they've been through in order to feel safe in that space. That should just be something that they're guaranteed to have. So that has definitely been how it's changed for me. Thank you. You had a question?
I was just gonna ask if any works here had been inspired by maybe a dance that you had done or a show that you were involved in that kind of blurred those lines between your different art forms.
Huh. I don't think so. I think the closest one would be that Two of Swords one, because I was doing Antigone at the time. I can even see it in the color scheme, that one's more cool tones, green and blue, and my costume for Antigone was a green leather dress, and she was kind of a badass and had combat boots and teased hair and whatever. So I feel that feeling kind of transfers into that, because that's at the same time as happening. But no, not really any direct crossover that I can recall.
So, thank you, Louise.
Yeah,
She's still gonna be here and you can talk to her, but thank you for participating in this. And I have met, through Tom, I've met Louise. I know that she sings, she dances, she acts. I had no idea that she did this. And she's this multifaceted, talented, lovely young woman, and we appreciate you sharing here with us. Thank you. Stand up, Louise. Mingle.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you for that question.
Do the mingle.
Very good.